Hello and welcome back to We Were Wondering. I'm Fiona.
And I'm Peyton. And today our topic is the responsibility of media, which is, I think, a big topic in general in society right now.
Yes.
And there's a couple things that prompted this topic. It's been on our list for a long time, since early last season. We have a shared note of a bunch of ideas.
Yeah.
And it's been there for a while. And I think we kind of touched on media in general nowadays a little bit in last week's video where we talked about generational differences and Gen Z growing up with it and how media has changed, things like that. So that I think kind of put it in our minds, but then also I think a lot of things have happened somewhat recently that also bring it to question. So one of the scenarios that I'm talking about is kind of the whole Colleen Ballinger situation. Mm-hmm. And I think that we can group any kind of YouTube drama or whatever with those YouTube drama with very real, very serious allegations in with that. And then the other situation,
the whole idea of cancel culture.
Yeah,
I think is important.
Which cancel culture can also be a whole episode. So
yeah,
they go hand in hand. The other situation that I was talking about that Fiona hasn't heard anything about is the Ruby Franke / Jodi Hildebrandt case. Have you heard of 8 Passengers? The YouTube channel?
Yeah, I've heard of that, but it's the kind of thing I see on my TikTok sometimes. Then when I see it, I skip past it because I'm like, I don't care about these people.
That's fair.
So, and then I think they don't show it to me anymore.
That's fair. But which do you want to start with? I'll let you pick.
Well, I feel like we should start with the one that I don't know anything about.
Okay. So I'm not going to give a super in-depth rundown of everything, but here's the abridged version. So there was a YouTube channel called 8 Passengers. Well, actually, I'm going to go back a step further. There was a channel called Ellie and Jared, and they gained popularity on YouTube because they documented their infertility journey. And so they built a little community surrounded around that. And then they had their first child and they became family vloggers. So Ellie is, she has 4 siblings, I think. And they all started family vlogging. So it was a whole family of family vlogging. It was also a Mormon family, which is important because it comes into play later. But yeah, it seemed like wholesome family vlogging at first. And then people started noticing this 8 Passengers channel, which is Ellie's oldest sister and the oldest sibling of all of them. Her name is Ruby Franke, and her husband Kevin had 6 children. And that's where 8 Passengers comes from. And then, but people started noticing that Ruby had very strict parenting styles, which some of the comments have said is pretty common in Mormon culture. But yeah, she was very strict and people started criticizing her, and it kind of got worse and worse as years went on. And then Ruby, in her latest videos, started, her YouTube channel has been scrubbed from YouTube, basically. You can still find whatever you want, but still, they don't post anymore. But she started talking about how she was training to be a something health coach of some sort.
Okay.
But she's not licensed in any way.
Yeah.
And it was through this group called Connections. And Connections was run by Jodi Hildebrandt. And they started a mom group with Connections called Moms of Truth. And they started posting videos together on this Moms of Truth group. And at this point, Ruby had stopped posting on 8 Passengers. And some of the things included in her strict parenting were she took away her child's bed for 7 months. He slept on the floor. They sent him to this is their second oldest son, Chad. They
Yeah.
sent him to a
Chad.
wilderness camp. That's her dad's name. They all have names that come from somewhere. That's
Yeah.
irrelevant though. But they sent him to a wilderness camp, and these Mormon wilderness camps are known for being
Oh,
not
yeah. I have heard
good.
about the wilderness camps, and
Yeah.
they're, yeah, like abusive, and everyone comes back with like trauma.
Yeah. So they sent him to a wilderness camp. They, yeah, their punishments just were, and the reason that his bed was taken away was because
Yeah.
he like pulled a prank on his youngest brother where they shared a room, I'm pretty sure, and he woke him up really early and was like, "Get ready, pack up, we're going to Disneyland." And the kid got all
Uh huh.
excited, and then he was like, "We're not going to Disneyland." So then they took away his bed for 7 months.
Yeah, obviously, because
Because
that's
that
what you do.
matches. Their
Yeah.
youngest daughter, like one time she forgot to bring a lunch to school. When I say youngest, she was, I think, 6.
Okay.
And the school called and was like, "Hey, Eve doesn't have a lunch today." And Ruby was like, "Well, it's her responsibility to pack it, so just let her go hungry and she'll learn to pack her lunch." And so she got a lot of backlash from that, obviously.
Yeah.
Um, she at one point she like threatened to cut off the head of one of Eve's like stuffed animals. Just things like that are like a little intense. The range of intensity
Yeah.
went from cutting heads off stuffed animals to wilderness camp. you
Yeah.
know? And she just people said she was very narcissistic. And didn't seem to really care about her children's well-being, things like that. So anyways, they end their YouTube channel. She's part of this connections group, and the stuff that they say in these videos is like things like you don't come into the world talking about children, like a parent telling this to moms for how they should parent their child. Your child doesn't come
Yeah.
into the world deserving food, deserving water, deserving shelter. Those are privileges that you give them. That's the kind of things that they were teaching. And the way they talk about punishment was just like extreme. And people started saying this isn't just a help group, like this is a cult. And so there was some stuff online, like her oldest daughter I know cut contact, or I think she partially cut contact and partially her family like cut contact from her because she wasn't buying into the connection stuff. But
Yeah.
apparently her and Ruby's other sisters, like they were all completely cut off. So Ruby and her kids, except for the oldest daughter, were cut off from their entire family, which before that had been a very tight knit family. I'm talking so way too much about this. Basically, fast forward. And multiple people, neighbors, family members, had called CPS, had called the police, saying they were very concerned about the children. CPS had gone to the house, I think, literally like 15 times, and just, long story short, dropped the ball multiple times, I think. And also, without seeing an actual crime, there's very little they can do. There's a lot of legality to it that I don't know all the details of. But in August, I think sometime mid-August, it was on the news and stuff that Ruby's youngest son, who is her second youngest child, climbed out a window of her house, or not her house, Jody's house. Don't know why they were there, but I guess they'd been staying there. And he went to a neighbor's house to ask for food and water and looked very scared. And it was clear that he'd been, I think he had duct tape on his ankles, looked very malnourished, things like that. So then police showed up. Eve was found in very similar conditions. One other kid was in the house. They haven't said which one. Not that it really matters to this context, but 3 children in the house. And so now she's in jail. Her and Jody are in jail for child abuse charges, basically.
Yeah.
But this became TikTok news and also on mainstream media sites also. And it ranged from like informative about charges and about what was happening in court systems and stuff to people really exploiting the family and villainizing every single person involved, like all of Ruby's siblings, that their whole family was like called these evil people, even though they weren't even connected to it all. And also, Ruby's family hadn't said a word about her those years, and people, so like, you don't know what's going on behind the scenes, basically. And
Yeah.
people were like out for blood on TikTok and on media sites and stuff like that. So that was such a long-winded story, but basically,
You're like, I'll give you the quick rundown 10 minutes later. I'm like,
has it been
okay.
10 minutes?
I feel like I
I'm
don't
so
even
sorry.
I feel like I don't even need to look up anything else about this.
No, I'm sorry.
No, this is interesting. I mean, I truly, this is not something I know like
Okay.
literally anything about. Like so.
Well, I watched that family for years. So when I saw the news of it, I was like, which I thought for a long time that Ruby was very extreme in parenting, but I didn't know. I mean, nobody knew the depth of it, obviously, besides the people directly affected. And there was, I don't know, all kinds of commentary on people. Her parents were in Serbia for a mission trip, and people were like, how could they leave the country when this was the state of their family? Things like that. Like, the whole family was just really criticized, and still is, because the case isn't closed. They went to court, and then it was postponed, and then they had some sort of custody hearing, which I don't think resulted in much. Like, they're in the court system now.
Yeah.
So, but basically, I don't think in that case that media sites did a very good job of like protecting people, and meaning like their children and things like that.
Well, that's and I know you said like you watched them for a while. I have very strong feelings about family vloggers as a whole. I think no one should exploit their kids like that, because your kids, like, they don't consent to having their images portrayed. Even if they do consent, they don't understand the kind of the long-term ramifications of that. People are very quick to like I see kids on TikTok and people will be like in the comments like, oh, they're so annoying. I'm like, yeah, they're 6. Like,
Yeah.
what do you mean? Or like people will be like, this is like free birth control. Like these kids suck. And I'm like, well, they're kids. Like, of course they suck. Like, kids are not like full grown adults with like the ability to kind of express themselves in the same way. And these kids that are being put online are put online for the rest of their life. So if they ever want to escape that image, if they want to find like a real career, like if you're going to like a job interview, someone looks up your name and there's like your entire childhood is documented online, that's like weird. That's weird that you have to live with that for the rest of your life. And I think obviously I think like some people do it like ethically and are very like nice about it, but the people who like post like daily videos of like their family and like their kids like fighting, or their kids having a tantrum, or like their kids doing this or doing that, I'm like, are you not scared of like A, people being creepy and weird, and B, that your kids are going to grow up to resent you? Like, I feel like that's the easiest way to have kids that go no contact with you in the future and cut you out of their life because they realize that they've been exploited for years. Like, your kid shouldn't be like a form of entertainment. I don't know.
I watched them in like middle school, early high school, and then I stopped because I was like, I didn't feel comfortable with it anymore. And hers were every day. Some of the siblings ones were, because like you said, people do it responsibly. An example of that I'll give is, we all know I'm a Zoe Sugg fan. So she has a daughter right now, and she's occasionally in the videos, but the videos are centered around Zoe. And they've said in their videos, once our child is old enough to like form sentences and like isn't a toddler, she's not going to be in the videos anymore. They would just show little cute moments, and that's it. No different than what parents post on Facebook, like random cute videos. And
and I
so
think that's like totally
that's where
fine.
I would draw the line too.
Yeah, because I know like if my parents had like posted daily videos of me when I was growing up. Or you think like when I was like 12, 11, 13, I was like, going through my emo phase. Like I was like a little depressed and like acting out, and I was probably they would have like filmed me and they would have been like, oh my god, that girl is so annoying.
Yeah,
And then I
the
would have had to
comments
live with
would have.
that online.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's also, a responsibility of media. As consumers of media, don't be mean to kids or
Yeah.
people in general. Like, I just don't get it. You don't know anything about these people.
Yeah.
It's very strange to me. Like, I don't understand why people get so into it.
Yeah, and I think that the way that this fits into media responsibility is first and foremost that should be parents' responsibilities, but parents fail. And media
Yes.
gives a platform to those parents that are failing their kids, essentially. Not to be blunt about it, but kind of. And so I think that's where it becomes the media's responsibility to not allow that. One example from the family, one of the sisters' names is Bonnie. And I think she used to have it set like in kids mode, and then YouTube took down a video or something, because I think in the video her kid got hurt, and she like went to court for it or something, some legal thing. I don't know the details. This is TikTok news, so yeah. But she then basically just stopped putting her videos in kids mode, and that was all that happened. And then with having it in kids mode, it doesn't allow comments. And so that's also a level of protection that's meant to come from the kids mode, but people can just select to not have it in kids mode. And that's the end of it. There's really nothing in place to protect the kids in the videos. And if there is something in place, it's not working, clearly.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, no, that's not true. I was going to say, I think that the connections people like post these things on YouTube, I think they post them privately and then other people upload them to YouTube. But same thing, like posting these very like culty, I don't want to say it's a cult, but like kind of culty videos publicly that are like telling people to abuse their children, basically. Things like that. Like, how does that have a platform?
No, exactly, because people buy into it. Like, I think I'm a fairly responsible consumer of media, and if I see a piece of information that I'm like, this is questionable, I will, like, double check to see if this is, like, legit, if this is something I should follow, but a lot of people aren't going to do that, and that's just how it is. Like, if you give them parenting advice, it's like, yeah, if your kid does this, take away their bed. Like, a lot of people are going to see that, and they're going to be like, oh, this is like sound advice. And then you look in the comments, and if there are people like backing them up, they're like, oh, this makes sense. And most people aren't going to go check that. And especially if you're someone who is like easily influenced by that kind of stuff. And I mean, I think it's hard to balance like the freedom of press, freedom of media with like, yeah, but maybe you shouldn't tell people to like abuse their kids, or like maybe there should be legitimate like repercussions or like warnings saying, this sucks. Like,
yeah, I think it's hard, like you said, it's hard to limit and hard to watch. Yeah. But it doesn't seem like they're trying. So
yeah, exactly.
That's where I'm like, and maybe that's something that, I mean, YouTube isn't new, but it's newer. So hopefully that's something that is coming, and that things will become more responsible as people learn. Because I mean, we talked about it in the generational video we did last week. When social media started coming out, it was like fun, exciting. People posted everything, and then people were like, "Oh, this is kind of dangerous in some situations. I should maybe be a little more private. I should maybe watch out for some things," and people backed off of it. So that's, I guess, my hope with media is that, and we're talking about media pretty broadly here. Hopefully it's getting to the point of, oh, this can be dangerous. Let's change some things. Hopefully. Yeah.
Especially once again, when there are kids involved. Like that's it's just so weird. Yeah. I don't know.
And I think plus, that's,
you're not scared someone's going to kidnap your kids? Sorry.
Well, not just that. People would post pictures of like children in things that could be taken, that should never be,
Yeah.
but could be taken sexually. Like, the photos of kids' feet, of kids whatever, would end up places
Yeah.
where they never should be. And that's, the parent didn't post it, but they put it out there for people to do whatever they want with. And I think that that's where the parent needs to expect people to suck and people they need to protect their kids before anything else. And when the parents fail, like they did in that situation, in the Ruby Franke situation, that's where there has to be some sort of guideline in media outlets, YouTube, TikTok, whatever it is, that's there to protect children. And that's also, we're talking like some legality stuff with that, but then if we want to take this opportunity to kind of transition into the Colleen Ballinger situation, that's where the lines of what's legal and what's not get a little more blurred, and it becomes a little more like pop culture-y in a way, because obviously as of right now there isn't a court case, and so it changes the media's perception of the situation, and it can become this big gossip thing when like there are real victims involved in this, and it should be treated with a similar level of respect to if there was an active court case, you know?
Yeah, like a lot of these things, it's more than just internet drama. Like it's actual drama and like actual issues that people are airing out online, but they're still like legitimate. I mean, sometimes they aren't. Sometimes people just like to like create problems, but in many cases it's like legitimate, like people are affected. It's stuff with consequences.
Yeah. And I'm actually going to keep this short. For those who don't know anything about the Colleen Ballinger situation, Colleen Ballinger had a channel and a character called Miranda Sings that posted offensive things, racist things, very sexual things. And while the character might not have meant to be geared toward children, it became a character that children very openly watched, and Colleen knew children were watching and still posted very sexual things. She also had group chats with minors where she would text very inappropriate things and things that should never be texted to children. And there was a situation where she sent like lingerie basically to a child because in a live stream they were joking about it. Just things like that where she crossed lines multiple times, and it was video documented, and people weirdly let it slide a bit when it was happening. And then Adam McIntyre posted a video, I think in 2020, and then basically Colleen's fans attacked him and he stopped talking about it. And then somebody else posted a video about it very recently. Then Adam McIntyre posted about it. Some other people started posting about it, and people started taking the allegations a little bit more seriously recently. And so kind of Colleen's entire career was brought into question now when it probably should have earlier. I did good.
And then she made a ukulele apology video,
yes,
which was strange.
Is how you handle adult situations.
Obviously, yeah.
That was under 10 minutes.
Yeah, that was good. I feel like this is like a more like well-known situation. Like mostly because of the apology video, like that was trending everywhere, and everyone was like, "What?" Like I feel like even if you didn't know the situation, because I didn't really know much behind the situation until she posted the apology video, but like that is just not like the proper way to apologize. So I feel like most people have seen that.
Yeah, I watched all of the Swoop documentaries. They're like 4 hours long. Anyways, she does a good job of being not impartial. She's definitely not impartial, but
like talking about the situation objectively.
Responsible. Yeah.
Yeah.
And she interviewed a lot of people involved and didn't let anything slide. I mean, I watched the one of her talking to Joshua, who was Colleen's ex-husband, and he's interesting because it's kind of a split between he was a victim in a lot of ways too, but also a willing participant in some of it. So his is kind of a gray area, and I think she did a good job of giving him a platform to talk about being a victim, and he became an alcoholic and had a lot of struggles. And when they spent time talking about that and about his experience with that, and then she also was like, I acknowledge that, but also there is this stuff that you did that harmed other people, and like had a conversation about that, and was very thorough. So, anyways, that's not that important. But that is also talking about, I think sometimes with media, it becomes like, it's a bit of a bandwagon situation where people will, that's the cancel culture of it. Like, respond very quickly turn on somebody. And sometimes it's just, and sometimes it's not.
Yeah, and I think this kind of reminds me of and goes well in with kind of some of the things we talked about in the parasocial relationships episode, where people get very attached to these internet personalities and then are absolutely shocked when something goes wrong, or like if someone does something that goes against their perception, they immediately are quick to like hop on and be like, you are the worst, like this is not like the person I know. And obviously in the Colleen Ballinger situation, that was like a deserved, like, she was creepy and weird. But there are other situations where people like make mistakes that, yes, like they do something wrong, but that doesn't mean they should be like excommunicated from society. Like,
yeah. I was talking to my roommate the other day, and she was talking about the show. I don't know if it's called Bear or if it's called The Bear, but John Mulaney's in it, and so she was talking about John Mulaney.
I didn't know John Mulaney was in it.
And he plays like an uncle. I don't think he's not like a main character, but he's in it.
Yeah, I don't know why, like, the only thing I know about it is a guy from Shameless is in it, actually, so I don't know why I, like, said that as if, like, oh, I knew things about the show.
I don't know how much, I've seen a single scene from the show, and it was wild. But, yeah, John Mulaney's in it, and so she was talking about John Mulaney, and all of my roommates, we quote John Mulaney a fair amount. The main one I feel like I quote is I was over on the bench, like in various situations. But we talk about John Mulaney a normal amount.
Yeah.
And she was talking to somebody, and they were like, he like cheated on his wife. Like, you shouldn't support him. I can't believe you'd watch something he's in. Things like that. And it's like, one, we don't know what happened and the timeline of things. And also, that can be, like you were saying, he made a mistake. If that's what happened, if it was genuinely like an infidelity situation, like, that's a bad thing to do. It doesn't mean you deserve to lose your entire career.
Yeah, especially because, I mean, and he's been very open about, like, struggles with addiction and all of that kind of stuff. And, like, clearly he knows he made mistakes. I think he was
very clearly in, like, a very, very dark point of life.
Yeah, like, it's not like he acted like he was above it all and that he hadn't, like, messed up. And I think, with that, it's like there's, like, so many kind of, like, gray areas where you can't immediately be like, oh, I hate them forever. I can think of, like, the people who came to mind with me where I'm thinking of, like, musical artists. Like, whenever I hear someone, and maybe, like, I'm not a big country music fan, whenever I hear someone, like, say they like Morgan Wallen, or, like, they love Morgan Wallen, or they're obsessed with Morgan Wallen, like, I immediately assume, like, they're just a little bit racist. Like, it just, because he said the N-word.
No idea
like, I don't know
where that was going. Okay.
I don't know, like, I feel like it was a thing for, like, a month, and then everyone got over it, and then, like, his career, like, doubled with success. Like, he came back from it, like, it was just, I live in Kentucky, so country music is, like, really, really big here, and, like, there are a lot of, like, everyone loves Morgan Wallen, and for me, I'm like, it was just so strange to me how everyone kind of ignored, and I know he did apologize for it, and, like,
was there a ukulele
but that
involved?
There was no ukulele involved, at least
Oh.
from my knowledge.
So not a
but
genuine apology then.
yeah, so like kind of a fake
kidding.
apology. No, it was just so strange to me that he was even more successful after that, because
Yeah.
to me that's something I'm like, you don't really come back to. The other one that comes to mind is Chris Brown. Like
That's what
I thought
that's where
everyone
I thought you were going.
yeah, that was the other one where I'm like, I thought everyone hated Chris Brown. Like, when did people go
Yeah.
back to, why do you listen to him? I don't understand. I love Rihanna.
I know. I know. I feel like he really didn't have many consequences at all. Like, I feel like people kept listening to him the whole time. Maybe not on the same scale, but he certainly wasn't struggling.
Yeah.
But I don't know really anything about Morgan Wallen. But one thing I was going to say, too, with the John Mulaney was we were kind of compare and contrasting that to the Ned Fulmer situation, because both have to do with infidelity. And I was like, I just think sometimes you can say, like, a cheater's a cheater and that's the end of it. But I do think there's, like, specific things with different scenarios that are important and that aren't discussed in media. Media tries, I feel like, to be very black and white, and situations just aren't. So, like, with John Mulaney, I don't know that he's talked very much about that, like, his marriage ending and that part of his personal life, but he's definitely talked about how he went through a time period where he was not a good person and where he was in a really dark place, and I feel like he's talked about that very openly, and we don't know the details of the infidelity. We don't know, because for all we know, they were split but not divorced or something like that. Like, we don't know the details. Whereas with Ned Fulmer, it was also a workplace power dynamic situation where we don't know, but even if everyone involved was a willing participant, there's still a power issue there, and an abusive
and the
power.
fact that he was a public figure, his wife was tied into that public image. Like, these weren't just his coworkers, but also his close friends that were running this with him.
And his wife worked for the same company. I mean, she had the podcast under the Try Guys umbrella. So, it was a big workplace situation, a big power dynamic situation.
Yes.
And it was a situation where there really wasn't any kind of accountability taken publicly or, and some people would say you don't have to take accountability publicly because it's a private situation. But when you're a public figure, it's kind of no longer a private thing. When it's a somewhat public infidelity also.
Yes, well, especially with that, where it came out, and the reason why they addressed it was because it came out publicly. Because I remember, that situation I was kind of invested in, and, I watched all their, podcast episodes, and they were like, we thought we would have more time to deal with it, because after we found out with it, and then, it started to come out online, and we were like, we have to address it now to get ahead with it. So.
Yeah. And, just things like that I feel like deserve time spent talking about the actual situations and not just trying to draw lines in the sand and say this is a bad person or this is a good person.
Yeah, which I think it's kind of something that goes along with the idea of separating the art from the artist. And I think in some situations you can do that. In other situations you can't, and there's kind of a gray area as to what that should be. And sometimes it is a judgment call, other times it's I don't know, I think it's a tricky situation because it's hard to judge.
I feel like you have to treat public figures almost the same way you treat a business. If this is a random hypothetical example, if Nike did something racist. I'm comparing to Morgan Wallen right now. If something happened, which I guess it is different because it's a huge company with multiple people involved, but with the way the public views it, by buying Nike, you're supporting Nike. By listening to Morgan Wallen and going to Morgan Wallen concerts, you're supporting the person. So there is sometimes a connection that you can't erase because they're directly linked.
Yeah, well, that's I think another thing I think of is Chick-fil-A. Like everyone like talks about like, oh, Chick-fil-A is like homophobic, and it's like a joke at this point. But then
Yeah.
like they are not losing any business. Like they are
No.
doing well. And so it's like
Isn't there
that's
literally like there was a TikTok trend of some sort of people saying like homophobia never tasted so good or something?
yeah.
I've heard that said
like it's
multiple
it's like
times.
turned into like a joke. And they're like, "Oh, it's like funny." But yeah, they're not losing any
And they're
business because of
also
it. Like
it's not like the owner of Chick-fil-A himself just happens to be homophobic. The company like actively donates to homophobic corporations
yeah.
and groups.
Yeah. So I just think it's like I don't know. It's like there are just so many like tough situations where it's hard to say like how you cuz you be thinking like, "Oh, I know the manager of my local Chick-fil-A and like he loves gay people." Like and then it's like,
Yeah.
okay, well then like in that case is it okay to go to your local Chick-fil-A? But like what about your Chick-fil-A down the street? Like is that Chick-fil-A okay? You don't know if they're homophobic there.
Yeah. Great point.
Sorry guys, that was like I'm like trying to art yeah, I don't really know like where I'm trying to go here. I did basically like long story short, I think it's just like with a lot of these kinds of things, it's just such a tough situation. Like
Is nuance the right word? It's the word in my head. Like there's nuances
Yeah,
in the
I think
situations.
yeah, I think that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I want to make sure I wasn't thinking a completely incorrect word. Every time I said there's differences, there's whatever, the word I was trying to avoid saying was nuances in case I was wrong. Anyways, there was a point that I had thought of and now it's gone.
Yeah. I've got something too, but I feel like every point I've brought up has like they've just
Other than the Chick-fil-A, I was with you.
my brain is like it's moving so quick today. Like I feel like I'm thinking faster than I can speak. Or maybe I'm speaking faster than I can think. I don't know, but like I just
That's fair.
got a lot of thoughts in my head right now.
That's good.
No, another thing that I was thinking of was like the like social justice like infographics on Instagram, that kind of thing, where people are like,
Oh,
like I'm on Twitter a lot, and like whenever something happens, like people will like pressure these celebrities. They're like, why haven't you spoken out about XYZ? Like, why haven't you posted this? Why haven't you done that? Like, why haven't you posted about this like refugee crisis? Like, why aren't you doing anything? Like, clearly you're like a bad person. Like people on Twitter, I feel, are very intense, and they're very like people on Twitter will like just jump on a bandwagon like against someone, and then like 2 days later they're like, oh, it's like fine. But I'm like, what result do you think is going to be achieved by the celebrity posting an infographic about refugees on their Instagram story? Like, and I understand bringing awareness is very, very important. But whenever I see on people kind of jumping on a band, like, why didn't you do this? I'm like, they don't have to post on their Instagram story when like something. It's great if they do, and they should be using their platform to support a bigger cause. And I think if you have a big platform, like that's something you should be aware of. But people are very quick to be like, I can't believe you posted this, when it's like also like it's been like 2 hours. You think they're like like on their phone right now, like, oh my god, they're on tour, like they have places to be.
yeah. And also, you don't know what they're doing behind the scenes. Like, the people that have big platforms also usually have big money. They might be donating to things. They might be doing things privately that they don't post about. And people will not just say, like, you should be posting this. They'll be like, you're part of the problem. Like, they'll be very aggressive about it. This is an example that's not the same because it doesn't have to do with bringing awareness, but I feel like it's the same in like level of stupidity. Sorry, a little blunt. But, when Chadwick Boseman passed away, Elizabeth Olsen was very heavily criticized for not posting about his death, and it's like that's like, we don't know details of their relationship, but like it looks like that's her friend, like that just died. Why would you expect Or why does she have to post about it? Like, she might be
Yes.
very much hurting privately, and it's not her responsibility to post it online to be like, hey, by the way, I am grieving. Like, that's a private thing. And while it's not
Yeah,
like
exactly.
an exact comparison to situations of spreading awareness, it's like similar in terms of responsibility, I feel like. Like, it is
Yeah.
not their responsibility to post about it. It's great if they do. I think it's admirable if they do. But I don't think it's a bad thing if they don't. Because also, some of the things that go around are also supporting certain organizations or things like that. And if it were me, I would, if I'm posting and giving that large of a platform to an organization, I'm going to do an extensive amount of research on that organization to make
Yes.
sure they don't suck.
Oh
So,
yeah, because I've also seen celebrities get flack for like posting some sort of thing, and they're like, "Why did you post this? Like, this doesn't the money that gets donated to this organization doesn't
mm-hmm,
go to like the right thing. Like
mm-hmm,
it's not like the bet." And they're like, okay, well, yeah, but like, what are also when you're attacking someone for not doing X, Y, Z? Like, what are you doing? You
yeah,
know, like what have you
you're
done to help?
attacking. That's all you're doing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like you're not making the world a better place. Because I've seen the same thing when like people pass away. I've also seen the same thing. I saw on TikTok yesterday, and it was like, I don't remember what celebrity it was. It's like, oh, he didn't post on his like Instagram for his birthday. Like it's confirmed they're not friends anymore. Like it was like a friendship that was speculated to have ended. And I'm like, I don't post for most of my friends' birthdays
Yeah.
anymore. I'm gonna be honest. Like, and we're still friends.
Yeah.
Like,
The like conspiracy that Hailey Bieber runs Justin Bieber's Instagram account is what I was thinking about. Sorry. Like, people.
yeah, and I think like media outlets maybe should have a responsibility to post about certain things and try and spread awareness, but you can't expect every individual person to post it. Once again, it's when there are major things going on, it is great if a celebrity speaks out, and they should. Like they should use their platform for a good cause,
Mm-hmm.
but it's also like not their responsibility
Mm-hmm.
to fix the world's problems. Like if you're an actor, your responsibility like is not to like bring an end to world hunger. Like that's just
Yeah. I feel like the actors that just don't have social media are the ones that have the right idea.
right?
I feel like it's almost a similar with to kind of tie back a little more to the responsibility of media outlets. I think it's a very similar point to what we talked about with the obsession with crime. I think that
Yes,
lines
I was
get
thinking
blurred
about that
between
earlier.
being informative and spreading awareness or, what have you, and entertainment. Because I think that
Yes.
media over time, media outlets, even professional news outlets, like any sort of thing like that, have learned over time that the more violence they show, the more like entertaining storylines, that the more entertaining they make it, the more viewers they get, the
Yeah.
more money they get, the more successful their show is, whatever it is. And so they prioritize that over the responsibility of respecting victims and giving voices to the right people and attention to the right people.
Yes.
And I think that that's where things over time have just kind of snowballed and gotten worse, similar to the obsession with crime episode we talked about and how people don't treat those
Yeah.
situations with the respect they deserve.
Oh, yeah, and I think like with that the media very much caters to the audience they know they have like even politically like a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people are like think that their sources aren't biased, but I'm like, the reason why you keep going back to like CNN or like Fox News
Mm-hmm.
is not because like they're just like a better news source. It's because like CNN is known to be a little more liberal, Fox News is known to be a little more conservative. Like which one you consume is likely going to align with your political alignment. Like there's
Yeah.
very little news media is entirely unbiased. And they might still be
Mm-hmm.
reporting on like objective facts, but there's going to be like a good amount of bias in A, the specific things they cover, B, the way they talk about it, C, like the people they kind of call into interviews. And so I think it's important for people to be aware of the bias of the news media they're consuming, because yes, they have a responsibility to provide accurate information, and they often do, but they often provide that accurate information with some sort of bias that many people are just like, no, it's fine.
I think, because you mentioned earlier talking about the line between, like, freedom of press and not, well, I don't know what the line was between, but brought up the issue of freedom of press. And I think that that's where, yes, it's the responsibility of the media outlet itself to, like, hold themselves to a certain standard, but it's also a responsibility of the consumers to hold the media outlets that they go to a certain standard, and to support the outlets that are being respectful to the right people, like victims and those kind of situations.
Yes.
And that's where we're kind of, the title of, like, responsibility of media, it's not something that really can, at least right now, be a legal issue because of freedom of press, which is a good thing. I'm not saying that like that because it's a bad thing. It's a good thing, but then that just means that the responsibility then has to fall on the outlets themselves, and I think sometimes that's where it doesn't happen.
Yes, exactly. I always think of, and this is kind of a weird example. I don't think I've said this in the pod before, but sophomore year of high school, or it might have even been freshman year. You know when those, like, killer clown thing, like, that was, like, a thing that was, like, people were legitimately scared that they were going to be, like, killer clowns in the street? I think it was
earlier than high school.
No, but, like, this instance I'm thinking of was in high school.
Oh, because there was, like, the 2012 clown thing.
Yeah, I don't know. There was, like, a I don't know. There was, like, a resurgence of... Yeah,
like
it was like, just a big, like, trending, like, clown thing. I don't know. And one of our friends sent, like, one of our friends was, like, really scared of clowns, and, like, she had expressed that this clown situation was one that really freaked her out. One of our other friends sent this, like, article in our group chat, and it was, like, killer clowns, like, found, like, really close to where we live, like, close to our high school. And she was like, and she was, like, dead serious, and she was like, guys, like, the clowns are here. And my other friend was, like, legitimately, like, freaking out. She was like, oh my god, like, the clowns are gonna get us. Like, I don't know why this was, like, a whole thing. And I looked at the article that, like, I was like, where did you get this information? I, like, looked at the screenshot. It was from The Onion. I was like, you know, that's, like, a, like, satirical, like, news website, and you just created this weird mass panic in our friend group to our friend who, you know, is really scared of clowns.
That's, like, I have told this story on the podcast, but my grandma that shared what episode was that in? I don't remember what episode it was, but she shared an article about, it was a political article, and I looked it up, and, like, the people, like, the names of people weren't even real people. I was like, this is so made up. They're, like, literally basically fictional characters. And
no, and after she sent that, I was like, you realize, like, that's not a real news website. Like, we don't need to freak out, guys.
That's a good point too, in terms of, like consumer responsibility, like the responsibility of people consuming media to make sure that the media that they're spreading is accurate and the sources that they're checking are accurate.
Oh yeah, because especially in that case, I was like, this was such an easy fix. Like I just, like, look at where you're getting your news from, and you can clearly tell that this is a satirical website that's not real. It explicitly says that.
And, like, the header too. My mom watched a TikTok channel where it was like, oh, I wish I knew what she was saying, but she would say, like, I just really, like, I don't want to have a job, like, if I just live on my own, like, in my house and I don't work, like, I would just be happier. She would post things like that. Hers were much better than that. But then everyone in the comments would be tearing this woman to shreds. And she was like, if you just read her bio, it's like, this is a satirical account. Like, none of these sentiments are my actual thoughts. And very easy to just check.
Yeah.
It's not always easy, but there are some situations where it's very easy.
Yeah. And if when people are responsible users of media, they make it clear what's satire, what's not, what's legit, what's not. And that's what you guys should do too when you're posting on media and consuming media. Thank you.
And use your best judgment too for when you're like kind of in the situations we talked about, where if you feel that the media is respecting the right people involved, that's a good, if a news site or media site seems like they're exploiting someone, then not the best, and they should be held to a higher standard than that. And it's not the government's job to do that. It's ours, and it's the media outlets, and it's something that has become very much a form of entertainment instead of a form of responsible news.
Yes. And on that note, we hope you enjoyed this episode, our take on the responsibility of media. We hope you learned to be more responsible.
Yeah, consume news responsibly, kids.
Yeah, and you know what else you should consume? Our Instagram, TikTok, subscribe to us on YouTube. We post very responsible content.
And hold us to a high standard.
Oh yeah. Hold us accountable. Anyways, bye.